So we are at session number 3 of the 7 series technical training. The first session, we talked about the 4 key functions over here, the listing of all of your processes. Last week, we discussed the organization chart. So how to technically use the chart and then how to kind of build it as a strategy tool that helps you to grow and organize your business. And today we're talking about job descriptions. So job descriptions are a combination of the org chart here and the 4 key functions. So that's how TouchStone's organized. The 4 key functions is a list of all of the processes. The org chart is a picture of all of the positions. And then the 2 come together when you link processes from the 4 key functions here to the boxes on the org chart. So you assign accountability for all of the positions on the org chart to the appropriate position who's accountable for that work. So I'm going to discuss technically how to build, create, and use the job descriptions. And then we're going to end with how to use them as a management tool. So once you've built your job descriptions, like what is the point of that? The point is to use them. And in my opinion, job descriptions, the ones in TouchStone, are one of the most valuable management tools that any business could ever have. So we're going to talk about that. And through that conversation, I'm going to be highlighting things inside of TouchStone that help support that, help support you using the job description as a management tool. And then at the very end, we're going to go through the process of the week, which is related to this whole topic of management. So when you create your organization chart, you're going to have boxes like you're seeing here. And when you select those boxes, once you've built your job descriptions, it's going to take you to the job description. So every box on the chart has a position title. And when you select that title, it's going to take you to the job description for that position. The job description is a list of all of the processes that position is accountable for. So all of these processes you're seeing here have come from the 4 key functions list. They're all on the 4 key functions list and they've been linked to this position. So I'm going to go here to the org chart and I'm going to add a position. So to add a position, I select these 3 little dots. I choose add and you'll see the untitled position appear. When I select it, it takes me to the job description for this position. So if you haven't built your job descriptions, this is what it looks like. It's going to have these 2 sections, one called strategic and one called tactical. Strategic processes are higher level work. They're managerial work, developing, reporting, analyzing, creating. Typically the work of a manager. Not always, but typically speaking, strategic processes are done by a manager. And then below that is tactical processes. So this is the staff work. This is the day-to-day work. This is how we define it, the strategic and tactical. It's up to you how you want to define it. If our definitions don't make sense to you and you want to organize it differently, I mean, you feel free. Over here in the Resource Center, there's a list, a more in-depth definition of strategic and tactical processes if you're interested in that. So starting here at the top, this field right here, which is called Untitled because I just added this position, is where the title goes. So all you have to do is click to edit, and then you type in the name of the position. Keep these, what I would say are just standard position titles. Some people get creative with their position titles or the titles of their employees, but keep it like a title and not like a sentence or a description. So you type in the name of the position and you hit save. If I want to edit this again, click it. It opens for me to edit. About 95% of everything in TouchStone that you would want to edit or you're able to edit, it's just click to edit. You click right on it and it opens. I can also edit the title through the organization chart itself. So I could go down to this position here and hit the little 3 dots and then choose edit. And it's going to open that position title field. So you'll notice from my example chart, these are some pretty typical position titles. We've got sales and marketing positions, operations, administration and finance. It's good to have the word manager in the position name if that position is a manager. You don't have to use manager, but that's something that's more typical. The names of your positions really have to do with your culture. If you want to have CEO, CFO, president, vice president, that's, again, has to do with your culture. So I'm going to click this position again. Right underneath the position title is this field called the objective. When I click this, the objective field will open. So this is the purpose of the position. Why does it exist? It's usually short, like it's a phrase or a sentence, sometimes two sentences. Think high level. So what is this position here to do? What is its overall result? So when you type this in, then you hit save and it saves the title. Again, if you want to edit it again, click and it opens. So let's go back here to the org chart. I'm just going to show you some different objectives. Let's choose this one. So this is a short, kind of high-level objective. Manages and delivers all companies' products and services. So that's what I'm talking about, something that's to the point. If you want to, you could also do more elaborate objectives. And I think I've got an example of one right here. Yeah. So this is still that objective field. And I've got this, what I would think is a traditional objective: report on company's financial status, manage human resources and employees in the support of the entire company. It's a pretty good objective for this position. But then I've also got here education, experience, skills. So if that's important to you, and these are things that are typically on a normal job description or like a job description that you're probably used to seeing. And some people really like these things to be on the job description. So this is a good field to put those in. Personally, I kind of feel like it's unnecessary right here because once you've hired your manager of admin finance, they don't need to be always reminded of the requirements for the position. Maybe, I'm sure someone could make a case for the opposite, but that's just my 2 cents about it. If you have items on a job description that you want to hold in TouchStone, but they don't fit into like a listing of processes, you could build a process and call it education and requirements and skills for the manager of administration and finance. Might think of something shorter than that, but that's the idea. You create a process that will hold this type of information and then create a document, use the document tool inside the process and just cut and paste that information into it. And then you can link it to the job description. Another way to look at these objective fields is to think of what's the headline of a recruiting ad that you would put in if you were hiring this position. What's like that, the top result, the description of the position. So this is title and objective. Starting up here and going to the right, I'm going to talk about these icons. This first icon is called Add Existing Process. And it's called existing because it is on the 4 key functions. It exists inside of TouchStone. So when I click Add Existing Process, I'm literally looking over at my 4 key functions and I'm able to select processes that the position is responsible for. So the first question is whether it's strategic or tactical. So what section of the job description do you want it in? Then the subfunction drop down, when I click that, it shows me all of my subfunctions from the 4 key functions. And you'll see doing, running, getting, guiding, unless you've edited the titles of those. And then I see my subfunctions all right here. So normally, or typically, if I'm building a job description for a position that's in the sales and marketing department, I would most likely go down to getting the business because that's where those processes are. And then I would choose the subfunction that's related to the processes of that position. The subfunctions are by subject. They're not by person. So think of the subject that would hold the work that this position is responsible for. So I choose the subfunction. And now I'm seeing all my processes from the 4 key functions that I've got there so far. So I would pick the processes that this position is accountable for, and then I just hit save. So now those processes appear. TouchStones link them from the 4 key functions to this position. Then I would go back, add existing process, strategic or tactical, hit the subfunction dropdown, and go back maybe to the next subfunction. Look through these, decide what is this position responsible for, and tick off the boxes for the processes, and then hit save. So what this is enabling you to do is comb through the 4 key functions and identify the processes to link to the position. Sometimes processes are the accountability of more than one person. So this right here could be the accountability of this position plus 3 other positions. And if that's the case, you just link that same process to all 3 of their positions. Someone is asking me to enlarge the screen. I don't know that I can do it. I'll look into that for next time. I think there is a way I can make the resolution a little bit bigger. So sorry if you're having an issue with that, but I'll check it out for next time. Once you've added the processes to the job description, some other functionality that exists here is drag and drop, first of all. So I can pull processes up and down to put them into an order. I can also drag them from strategic to tactical. So pull up and down to reorder. When you're first building your processes, I think to put these in order of priority of documentation is a good idea. So if I want this one done first, the referrals and testimonials, and then this one, I put them in order of priority. Once the processes are documented, you could then put them in alphabetical order. The reality of this is when your employees go to access their processes, they're going to do it from the dashboard over here. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. They're not typically going to be coming here to the job description because all of these processes on this job description show up in the dashboard for the position. If I have a control panel assigned for that position, I will see all these processes. And there are more extensive organization tools within the control panels than there are here on the job description. After add existing process, just going back to this toolbar row above here, this next toolbar item is called add new process. So what this is for is if you've added your processes from the 4 key functions and then you're looking at this job description and you notice something's missing. This is a good reason to use this toolbar item. I would just select add new process. I put in the process name right here. Then I say strategic or tactical section of the job description. And now it's asking me which subfunction it belongs in on the 4 key functions. And the reason that is because every process in your account is always going to be on the 4 key functions in one place or another. It's the master list of everything. So I can add this directly to this job description, but I'm still required to keep the 4 key functions accurate. So you choose the subfunction that this process you're about to add belongs in, and then hit save. Okay, if you ever see this, this says that the process title I'm about to put in here already exists. That's just to stop you from putting in duplicates. So if you ever see that, you can search to find the actual process that has the duplicate name over here with the search field, change the name to something different. And that one already exists too. I'm going to get better at this. Okay, so now it just added the process right here. And if I select this process, you're going to see right here on this breadcrumb trail that it's in guiding or getting the business in the 4 key functions. All right. This next toolbar item over next to the right of add new process is the export features called send print. You can export the job description or print it directly to your printer, to Word, or to a PDF. And then you can also do what we call print the operating manual for the position or export it to Word. So what happens with these 2 items is that TouchStone will export the job description. Then it's going to export all the tools inside of every process. So the work plans, the checklist, all of it. And it dumps it into a Word doc or a PDF doc. And then essentially what you have is the operating manual for that position. If you ever want an external manual for whatever reason, this is a quick way to get it. Exporting it to Word is probably the best idea, because then you can put in page breaks if you want to. If you just dump it to a PDF, TouchStone doesn't know where to cut off the pages, maybe someday, but not now. So if you do this, then you can edit it and kind of move stuff around. It's not going to print videos and audio files or uploaded files, because there's really, there's no way to print that. So with the exclusion of those three tools, it will print everything else. Just my quick 2 cents on exporting things from TouchStone. One of the benefits of TouchStone is that everything inside of it is up to date all the time. It's current. It's got the most current version of everything that you have. The minute you export something, now you've created another copy of it. So that is an issue on its own, because if somebody starts to make changes to that Word document, those are clearly not happening in TouchStone, and there's no way to import it back in like that. Another reason not to export things is just to get your business used to being virtual and being paperless. If you use everything in the cloud in TouchStone, then you're kind of changing the way that your people work, and you're teaching them to do it in a different way, to stop printing things, but to more get used to it in an electronic format. I think another consequence of exporting things, again, is that you're also not teaching your people how to use TouchStone. You're giving them paper again. You're giving them Word documents. So you're handicapping their ability to use TouchStone in a way, because you're not forcing them to. TouchStone's super easy friendly, especially at the read-only level. So rather than exporting this operating manual, teaching your employees how to go into TouchStone and find what they need. All right, so a couple other features here. You'll notice when I'm hovering over these items, I'm seeing this little remove button here appears. So this is how you remove a process from a job description. If I click remove, I'm going to see this, are you sure? And you say, okay, and then that process is going to be removed. It's not deleted. The only way to delete a process is to go to TouchStone, or to the 4 key functions, have the right level of access, first of all, and then you can delete something from the 4 key functions. Here, you're just removing it from the job description. When I select a process, I'm just going to click this one. There's an icon on every process called link to job description. So this is another way to link a process to a job description. So I'm on this process, creating a marketing strategy. If I click this icon, I'm going to see my org chart. First of all, I see the processes that have been linked, which job descriptions this process has been linked to so far. And then I can link it and unlink it from this screen. So if I want to link it to the advertising position, I just select it, and you see it just appears in orange. And if I want to remove it, I click that and it removes. So this is a good way to do a double check to make sure that all of your processes are linked to the appropriate positions. So what that might look like is, after you've built all your job descriptions, maybe using this toolbar item, add existing process, and you feel like you've got it down pretty well, but you just want to do a double check. Good thing to do is to go to the 4 key functions, go to the first function, click the process, and click link to job description, and just look it over. Is it on all the right job descriptions? Do you want to remove it or put it on anyone that's missing or shouldn't be there? When you're happy with it, hit close, hit the back button, and go down to the next process. This takes, I know some of you are rolling your eyes now, but this takes literally, half a second to a minute per position. And there's a bigger benefit to this. It's not just making sure that the processes are on the right job description. It's also looking at every process, forcing yourself to look at everything that you've got in TouchStone. And if you get to a process, and maybe it's a library process that you downloaded a year ago and you just don't even know why it's there, this is an opportunity to clean up your 4 key functions. So not just make sure it's on every job description, but clean up processes that don't belong there, that you downloaded years ago, but never documented or used, something that doesn't make sense. Another thing you can do while going through this quick analysis is make sure every process has an objective. This right here. These objectives appear on the job descriptions. So when a process doesn't have an objective, you're going to clearly see that it's missing. So it's going to look like this one that I added. You see there's no description underneath this one, but all the others have it. The objectives, they look nice. They also tell people in one sentence or less what's in the process, which is very beneficial. So that is basically the technology around using the job descriptions. So let's talk now about some of the tools inside of TouchStone that help you to use job descriptions. So the job descriptions in TouchStone are primarily a list of what each position is accountable for. I'm going to go to a real position here, customer service. So in its bare bones, it's a list of the processes that each position is accountable for. It's not just a list, it's a very clearly, specifically defined work item. And that there's a big difference between that and maybe how you would describe work being done or what you might traditionally see on a job description. So I could say to the customer service person, it's part of your job to make sure that you're managing your time and that you're being an example to other employees by using your time effectively. So that's your job. Manage your time and use your time effectively. I can tell someone that, I can write it down for them, but what do I mean by that? How do they do that? So these job descriptions turn what could be subjective kind of instructions into something very clear and tangible. So when I say have good time management, I'm saying do daily time logs and do daily planning. And furthermore, here's a step-by-step for how to do both of those and some examples and a template to use. So it's a far different thing than saying you go do your work or describe it in this subjective way. Another thing that's very common, and I'll go to a managerial position to talk about this, is to say to a manager in a recruiting ad or when you hire them, well, it's your job to manage the admin finance department, make sure that all those people are getting their work done and they're doing it effectively. Now go do it. It's if you hire a really experienced, exceptional manager, maybe they dig in and do that well. But typically speaking, there's frustration that arises around that because your expectation of what you mean by that is different, could be different if it's not articulated well. So in the strategic section, we've got all of these managerial processes. So I'm not just saying manage the sales department. I'm saying here are the processes that you use to manage the sales department. So it's a much different situation. So again, job descriptions are this list of these very clear, absolute processes describing what that position is accountable for. This alone sets up a manager to be successful with an employee because I'm not trying to manage what I told someone how to do or what they learned 6 months ago when they watched someone else do it. I'm not trying to firefight mistakes they're making and hoping that they're going to remember how to fix those things because I told them before and they were already trained. It's not this mess of all of that, which is what everybody hates about management. It's clear. So if I have an employee who's not getting results with referrals and testimonials, and I know that a good salesperson should be able to generate, 20 referrals a month without even trying, and I've got a person who just can't do it, I'm not going to go to them and say, God damn it, I told you, that you had to generate these 20 sales and this other guy's doing it fine. So what's going on with you? What's wrong with what you're doing? So that's confrontation. It's personalizing it. It's an ineffective way to manage, puts the employee on defense. It doesn't really get at the real issue. So how these job descriptions can be used is rather than attacking the employee that way, which is one managerial style, or not saying anything at all and just getting frustrated inside, which is another managerial style. I would go to the employee and say, listen, let's sit down and review the referrals and testimonials process. Let's take a look at it. Let's look at the tasks together. I know you saw this before, but let's go over it again. And let's figure out what's going wrong. Then we sit down with it in TouchStone. We review the work plans. We look at the checklist. Maybe it's not a great process and more needs to be added to it. So that's an opportunity to innovate it and make it better. Or maybe the employee never really took it seriously when they read it over the first time, and I have an opportunity as a manager to retrain them in what to do. Either way, it creates the kind of management and learning that we all thrive under. And it is a new way to manage. Now, I understand clearly that not every process in an entire company or position can be articulated this way in a process. But what if 50% of them could be? What if 80% could be? What if only 20% could be? So I'm saying this to get rid of the yeah buts that sometimes go on, because we fully understand that everything everybody does can be fully documented and perfect inside of TouchStone. It's just not the case. But a good 50% of what each position does can. And if it can't, then there's a problem in the way that you're looking at it. So strive for the top 20% of documenting things and how they're done. And what I would suggest is that even if you did 20% of what everybody does, that 20% of what they do is going to be damn good. And the rest of it, you can start to push along the way and look for opportunities on how to document it. So I'm going to go over here to the dashboard and show you a few things about management review here. So in the control panels that are assigned, all the control panels are really a list of the processes that are on the job description. That's what they are. All these processes you're seeing here are everything that's on the job description here in the org chart. So TouchStone is helping you to use the job description as a management tool by having this control panel functionality where your employees see their processes and can access them very easily. So here in the control panel, it's not just strategic and tactical like we saw over here on the org chart or through the org chart. You can create these groups. So I've got a group here called, I got create group icon, edit, and then delete. Pretty easy. I have a group here called management, and then I've got all my managerial processes there. Then I've got one called planning, and then I've got my processes there. Here's one just for like checklists that I do every day or week, customer service. So these groups can be organized by subject, or they can also be timing or dates or topics. So this helps anybody take the processes on the job description and organize them into categories so they can see things a little easier and better. So I'm going to highlight a way to use TouchStone for training. And we're going to talk a lot more about this when we get into the last session, which is fully on the dashboard functionality. But I want to show you another example of how job descriptions are a phenomenal management tool. So let's say I just hired John here as a new customer service person, and his job description is built. So we did it over here through the org chart. We assigned all the processes that he's responsible for from the 4 key functions to his position on the chart. And then I see him in management review right here because I'm above him on the org chart. He's been set up with a control panel over here in account administration. And because I'm his manager above him on the org chart, that's why I see him here in management review. So let me click on his name. So let's say John's hired and I've looked over all of his processes and I've asked myself, how long should it take him to learn all this work? So look over all the processes on the job description and ask yourself, how long would it take a competent, somebody who's has the qualifications of that position to learn all the work that they have to do? If you've never done training this way before, it might take some guesstimation in the beginning. And if you have managers, your manager should be able to have some sense of this. So just because you've never thought about it this way before, done it this way before, doesn't mean that you can't start. So all I've done here is created a group. So I've got these subjects areas already, like time management, customer service, admin. And all I've done is added training weeks. So if it should take a month to fully train a customer service person, then I create 4 weeks, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I've organized the processes into those weeks. So this is what he's going to learn the first week. This is what he's going to learn the second week, third, fourth. Now this looks kind of nice and tidy because it's an example, but depending on the type of position that you have, it could take longer, it could be shorter, it could take a year for someone to be fully trained. So organize, put these into groups accordingly. Just because in week 1, I want John to learn all 4 of these processes doesn't mean he's doing nothing else. He could be doing other things, but this is his formal training to formally train him on each of the processes in an organized way. So what happens is John logs into TouchStone. He goes to his control panel and he sees the same thing when he logs in. He sees his processes organized into these weeks. So he would click the first one, read the work plans, study the templates, watch videos if you have those. So he's reviewing all the documentation inside of here. And when he's finished or feels like he's mastered it, then he can put in the notes field, he can put a note to you saying, I feel like I'm good with this, or done. Then he would move to the next one. When the manager then steps in and reviews it, does he really know how to do this? What kind of test could I give him? Can I have him show me how he does it and then comment on it? And then when I feel like he's really is done with it, I select it and then I hit this little button, train all. I can even make training notes in here if I want to remember stuff about what happened when he was being trained. And then these little green check marks appear. And then what I do is pull this to the bottom and then this next one's at the top. So 2-3 weeks go by, he's learning this and this and this. Ultimately, the first week happens and I've ticked off all of these. And now he sees these green check marks appear in his processes. And I'm tracking everything as he's learning it and doing it. My manager, who's above me on the org chart, could log into TouchStone and see this and see that the training has been happening. And then you go on to week 2. So this is, again, more of a methodical way to use the job description as a management tool for training to help do a step-by-step training. Another beautiful thing about this is that you also start to get an understanding of how much time and money, therefore money, it's going to take you or be required in order for you to train. A lot of small business owners don't think about this. It's just, we need someone where we really need help right now. Let's go find that person, put them in, get them working, and you know, you're just off to the races on this regular way that you probably normally train. This is a different way to do it clearly, but it gives you more control. So ultimately, at the end of the month, I could add up the amount of money I've paid John. I could do a percentage for management, and I know how much this has cost me, basically. How much has it cost me to hire a new customer service person? Where this starts to get really interesting is when we talk about what we did last week, where you've got these levels. So apprentice, tech, lead, senior. I now know if I train this way, the exact amount of time it should take to, and money it will cost to fully train an apprentice technician. And then once they move up to lead, I know how much money that's going to cost me to then move them from here to here. And for those of you who understand scaling your business and growing a small business, you know how important this is. Because when you're juggling sales over here and advertising and money spent with your operations ability to deliver that product or service well and be trained to do it, you know that growing your own talent from within and being able to know what it's going to cost you can be tremendously beneficial. It also helps with the psychological issues that go on around dealing with employees who aren't meant to be in that position anyway. So you've got an employee bookkeeper, say, and you've been dealing with frustrations and issues and problems, but you're like, the thought of firing that person and hiring a new person is just so overwhelming because you don't want to have to jump in and do the work yourself. Maybe you're the manager in that role and you know that you would have to jump in and start doing the work yourself. And you have no idea if you can find a good bookkeeper or how long it's going to take them to get up to speed. So it handles those issues as well, because you can confidently say, I've got all the processes for this position, and I know I can fully train someone in a month, and that's going to cost me $10,000. And then you can accept it and decide if that's a good decision or not. It also helps in hiring decisions. I know I talked about this last week, but I'll just say it again. There's some just excruciating number about the cost of a bad hire. And I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's a lot. It's like way more than you would ever think. And it has to do with hiring someone, having them on board, and they're with you for a few months. And then you decide, oh, it's a terrible employee, or they end up quitting because they feel like your business is so out of control, and all the money you've lost just in those 2 months. This helps with that, this levels and this training over here that I'm talking about, because if I have John here and he's well into month 2 down or week 2 down here, and he hasn't learned all this and he's just struggling with it and he's making mistakes and doesn't get it, he's just not what I thought he was, then I can cut my losses a little easier because I can see tangibly that it's not happening, that he wasn't what I thought. His skills weren't what I thought they were. So that's job descriptions for new employee training. There's a tool. So here's another idea on using job descriptions as a management tool. The new employee training is one thing we talked about. Here's another idea. So I'm going to click my control panel here, Manager of Admin Finance. There's a great process right here called one-on-one meetings. This came from our library. So the one-on-one meeting concept is like really basic, but what it does is it helps facilitate communication. So in management, we all know that communication is key. Just being able to express not how the work is going all the time, but how the employees are doing, what is happening with certain situations, what's happening in the company overall. A lot of times this one-on-one communication doesn't happen because everybody's just so busy. So this is a process that really, can help with that. So one-on-one meetings should happen. This is like a manager to an employee, one-on-one. It can be a half an hour once a month, if that's all you've got. It's better if it's maybe an hour once a month. For managerial positions, it should probably be an hour a week. This is a time where the employee sits down with the manager and we just spend 15, 20 minutes, half an hour talking about how it's going. It can be personal if when that's required. How are you doing? A manager who really cares. It could be corrective or ongoing training where I'm saying things that could be done better. So this meeting or this process can help with that. There's a work plan here, which does like a step-by-step for training or for how to do the one-on-one meetings. Then there's a checklist for it. And then the heart of it is really this custom form here. So how this relates to job descriptions. So the employee's been trained and they've got their job description and they're going about doing their work. And my job as a manager is to communicate with them about how that work is going. So if I have a format like this one-on-one meeting, I can create an agenda every week or every month. I can put the employee's name here, the date, and I can, in this items to discuss, I can list things that I want to talk to them about. Maybe referrals or checklists. By listing these things to discuss, I can also, as a manager, really try to hold things for the meeting rather than interrupting people all the time or walking around doing management by talking or email or calling. So any items to discuss, things that I experienced or wanted to, or saw an issue in, or saw something I wanted to congratulate the employee on. I can list these things in my items to discuss here right inside of TouchStone. Anything that can be saved to the meeting should be saved. And that it can help you kind of get out of this multitasking, having to check in with people all the time. So I put in these items to discuss things that happened in the last meeting that I wanted to follow through on, goals that I have for the employee for the next week or month going forward, any personal issues, and then there's a notes field. So I fill these out once a week, once a month. I put in the employee's name right here is probably the best way to use the save as field in this example. And then I save it. So now this form here has been saved back to TouchStone. I can also print it. So if I want to take it with me somewhere and I want it to be in a paper format, I can print it, which creates a PDF. So let's say I do these once a month with my employees and I've filled out this document as I saw and noticed things over the month. When I write down items to discuss, what a good manager does is they think back to the processes on the job description. And if there's some issue that's going on, like referrals and not being enough, I try to point it back to a process on the job description, because it's better to be able to refer to a process when you're trying to discuss how things could be better or what needs to change. If there's a frustration or issue here and I can't point to a process, then that might be a sign to me as a manager that I'm missing a process, that I'm missing something important for this employee to be getting their results. So best case scenario, if you can point to a process. So I sit down with the employee and we go through it together. We discuss the items to discuss. We discuss processes on the job description. And I use those as much as possible to have this very structured, clear conversation with each employee on the processes that they're accountable for and how they're going. After the one-on-one meetings, there begins to be just this better, more open communication and better management. I think a statistic I read a little while ago said that the number one reason that employees quit is because of bad management. And now with the employment issue with a lot of small businesses because of the pandemic, this is becoming more and more important. There's more options for people. So having really good management, managers who care, managers who use processes to manage, is key to ensuring that your employees have the best experience possible working for your company. So one-on-one meetings is a way to use the processes on a job description to then communicate with the employee. And that could be good things and things that need to change. So I could sit with Mary here and we could discuss cash flow planning. And I might say to her, let's open up and look at that process together. You know how you created this spreadsheet and how you were able to forecast what's happening in the next quarter? That was amazing. So great. Like, you're using the process really well. I really appreciate it. Or it could be something that's harder, like your key performance indicators. What happened? You didn't fill them out last quarter, and the quarter before the numbers weren't right. So let's look at the process together and figure it out. Not making it her fault. I'm using the process as an opportunity to talk to her about what's happening, good and bad. So let's go back here to the dashboard. Someone's asking a good question, and this is interesting because I was in a discussion with someone after last week's technical training about this whole scenario where I'm talking about hire here, then move here, then move here. And I think your question is related to this. What he was saying was, if it cost me $10,000 to train an apprentice and then another 20 to move them here and then another 20 to move them here, and I'm looking at $50,000 in training costs by the time I get a senior technician, and then they just quit because they move out of town or something, they just feel like working for my competitor. That doesn't make sense. My small business can't do that. That might be the reality. but and his question was, what do I do about that? The only thing to do, because you can't avoid it, you can make more efficient training, therefore maybe causing you less money, but you can't avoid this scenario where you're spending money on training. You just can't. And I think it's a fallacy that small business owners get themselves in, thinking that they're going to be able to go and find the senior person who knows how to do it every time. You have to train your own talent from within. It's great if you can go find a senior technician for one of your competitors. But at the end of the day, you can't rely on that as a way to grow your business. So there's no way out of it. You have to grow your own talent from within. You have to have processes. You have to spend money on training. The bottom line is you're already spending money on training. Every time you hire someone, whether you recognize it or not, you're spending time and money on training. And I would suggest it's way more than the 50,000 in this scenario, way more. You just don't realize it because you're not adding it all up. The truth is, and this is something Michael Gerber used to say all the time, you've got to create a game worth playing. You've got to create a place where people want to be. You've got to create a business that has good management, where managers lift people up. They use processes to demonstrate their points rather than their feelings or their subjective viewpoints. You've got to create a game worth playing, a place people want to be. That is the only way to keep good employees. And if you do that, you're going to have your competitors' employees coming to you. So create a game worth playing. And I would suggest that these management techniques that I'm discussing and training is going to put you ahead of the curve way more than your competition if they're not doing things this way. So I want to talk about one more process which I'm calling the process of the week. And again, it has to do with management. So I'm going to go here to manager of admin finance position. So we talked about one-on-one meetings. This is again, I just want to encourage people to think about this and decide what your own version of this is. Maybe it's a Zoom call. Maybe it's sitting on the tailgate of a truck on the job site. It could be anything that works for you and works for your culture. But encourage your managers to do this because you won't know the result until you've tried it. I can't explain it to you. It's big. So this is the process of the week. Pretty common managerial process. We call it employee performance review. I'm going to go over here to the 4 functions. The performance review and the one-on-one meeting process is in the library in Guiding Business right here. This is the employee performance review. What this process has in it is it's got work plans here, which give you a step-by-step for creating a performance review. So it walks you through. There's even like a link to a tutorial. There's like a video right here. It just simply discusses how to use this template and then take the job description and make it the heart of your performance review. So if you've got a job description, which you do in TouchStone, and you're reviewing that with employees, you're training them in it, you're doing one-on-one meetings, you're discussing the processes all throughout the year, and then you get to the end of the year and you're going to give them a performance review. Every employee deserves some type of formal review after a year's worth of time. It doesn't have to be tied to salary increases if you don't want it to, or you can't. But there should be a review of some kind where you're just simply talking about how it went that year. How are they feeling? What have they learned? What have they yet to learn? And if you use the job description to do this, then it's just, it's making it come full circle in a way. So they're trained with the job description. They're managed with it throughout the year. And then the performance review is the final way that you close that circle of management. So the performance review takes every process from the job description. I'm going to go to an example of one right here. This is a template. It takes processes from the job description and puts them into the template, and you give a rating on that. So industry and standards compliance, productivity reporting, safety and inspections. These are the processes from the job description. this work plan here describes how you can go to your org chart, you can export the job description, you can copy it and then paste it into the performance review template. That's what it describes. That's using, there's two templates here, and these are actually the same that are down here. You can do this in Excel, or I think it's in Word. So I can export this performance review form, and then I can cut and paste the work into it and then re-upload it to TouchStone. Or I can do it here in the document tool, like you're seeing here. I can cut and paste it into here and then take the word from the processes from the job description and cut and paste them into here. I only have to do it once per position. So I'm the manager of admin finance. It's my responsibility to do reviews for the customer service people and for the bookkeeper. Then I have to create this template just one time. Unless the job description changes, then I may need to add or remove things, but it's pretty much one time. There's a custom form version of this too. So this is, you put the process title in here, then you give it a rating and you put in comments. So whatever template you like best. Anytime in a library process, you see multiple templates that are the same thing, like you see a document and a custom form, or you see a customer form and an uploaded file. That's just our way of giving you versions of this, giving you different templates to use. And then you choose the one, that you think will work the best for your situation. So we take all the processes from the job description, put them into these templates and do the reviews. So I'm going to go to the dashboard and show you what it looks like. So admin finance manager, I'm going to click performance review. And then I go down here to the template. Here's one for customer service. So now this is a live performance review template. So I would go and put the employee's name in here. And then I would fill out this review form. Give him a grade for every process and writing in comments. The template also has like strengths and weaknesses, so it's got some general stuff like this. And in fact, if you have your own performance review template, you can take this one idea of evaluating processes in it and use your own template and just take the actual processes and put them into the heart of your job description template as well. So when I'm filling these out as a manager, if I've trained my employee in the processes, I have reviewed them with them in one-on-one meetings once a quarter or once a month throughout the year, and then I sit down to fill out this performance review form, it's going to be so easy. I'll know exactly what to rate them as because I'll have been focusing on it all year. And what's even better is there's no surprises for the employee because we've already talked about it. If there was an issue with the way that they were handling customer complaints, and I'd been having my one-on-one meetings, they would already full know that there is an issue. And we already discussed how to handle it and what we're working on. So when I give them a rating of average, there's going to be why did you give me 3? What am I doing wrong? And then I've got to try to remember and justify my opinion on subjective things that I never was really clear on. This is what all managers hate about performance reviews. You sit down to fill out this template and you just have a general sense of how you think the employee's been doing, and you're trying to make it objective. And then you've got to stand behind it. But there's typically not real evidence. So just yet another reason to consider the one-on-one meeting, consider really using the job description to kind of track and evaluate how your employees are doing with processes. So once I've filled this out, then I save it and then I can print it here. Inside of the control panel functionality, let's go back here. Even if I'm using the document tool, and then I want the employee to sign it, I can print this, the employee can sign it, I can scan it back into my computer, and then I can go here to the uploaded files tool, and I can upload that file here and put the employee's name. So if you do want them signed like that, you can put the signed version back in TouchStone just by going through and making it an uploaded file and then uploading that file. So I've got a few question. Someone wants to know about how to add notes for training. So I'm going to go here to John, because I don't think I talked about that specifically. So let's say I'm training John in daily planning. Then I want to go and add a note about his training. I select the work plan, and then here's management notes. So here I put in the notes, and then I hit save. So each tool has a notes field, and the notes field is used to talk about any issues that happened during the training. You can even you can save these and date and time stamp the notes, so you can see the exact time that and date that you did the train all. You can also train tools individually. So I'm just going to uncheck this. So I could, let's say I trained him in this work plan, but not in the documents yet, and I want to mark this as trained. I just hit trained here. And now this work plan has got a green check mark next to it, but the other tools don't. Sometimes if processes are more elaborate, like they take longer to learn, you might check off things within them before you check off the overall process. I'm reading your question, Mike. Can documents be branded with the company logo? That's a good question. You have to insert your logo. So let me just go to a document. So if this is my performance review here, let me go to this document. And then when I click this, it's going to open. So I could take my logo and put it right here. So you can drag, and that's how images work in TouchStone. You drag and drop them into the field. And then when you save this, the logo will appear. So you can put your logo in, and that would be the way to do it. But there's no way of uploading a logo and having it appear on every page. But you can just insert either using this toolbar item to click and find your logo, or drag and drop it into the field here. This is also a good question. So someone's asking how to make copies. So I'm assuming this comes from, okay, so I've got the master template right here for the performance review form. So say this is the master template, which it is. And then let's say I want to make copies of this so that I could then add my employees like here and here. So this is a workaround, and it's all recorded now. So anyway, it'll be fine. What the problem is, you don't want to create duplicates of things, because then you just have duplicates. But there is a reason to be able to have a copy, and this is one of them. So if I've got this template and I want to rename it for each employee, and then each employee is going to have a different work listing here, rather than having to recreate the template over and over again, I would just make copies of this template and then add the work listing to each one. So here's a way to do it. You use the archive. So you go here to archive, and then I say, okay. So now I've created a copy of this master template. And if I go here to the archived, then I see it right here, and I can restore it. So I just made a copy of this. There's one here, and now there's one here. So then what I would do is I'd go to the copy I made, and I would change this to another position title. So now this is the performance review template for the admin position. And then you see right here, customer service, admin, bookkeeper. And then I would go down to the work listing and cut and paste that person's work right in here. So now that's the way to create a copy. Another reason people do this or want to create copies is if you have two work plans for something and 80% of it's the same, but there's like 20% that's different, or 50% that's different, and you just want a copy of it that you're going to go and edit and make different, that would be a reason to make a copy. What you don't want to do is just start making copies of things and then move them around to different places. I saw this in an account the other day where somebody had taken a process and they wanted it to be the accountability of, like, let's say all three of these positions. So they made 3 versions of it. So that's the kind of stuff we don't want you to do because you're just making duplicates for no reason. But if you do want a copy of something, use the archive. Just archive it and then go and restore it. So I do see some other questions that I'm going to answer when we all get off the phone here. But before I let you go, next week, we're going to be starting a conversation on how to document processes. So this is called the process tools page. Next week, we're going to talk about documenting work plans and checklists. The following week, we're going to cover the rest of the tools. So what will happen in this webinar is I'll discuss technically how to use the tools, which we think that they're all very user-friendly, but there is more technically how to do things in these two webinars than they probably are in the others. So I'm going to spend some time talking about technically how to use things, how to build things, best practices for that. And then we're going to talk about what makes good documentation. So not just how to use the tools in TouchStone, but what does a really good documented work plan look like? What kind of attributes does it have? What to be thinking about when you're building it? Different types of work and how one's documented differently than another. And then we're going to talk about checklists with the same thing, the technology, but then also what makes a good checklist and how do you use checklists in TouchStone? So I'm saying all this because if you have employees or managers that you think would be good at documenting, the more people you have involved in documenting, the better. Then the next 2 weeks would be a great time to pull them onto this webinar and let them spend an hour thinking about it. Because we're not going to be discussing all the other factors inside of TouchStone. We're really just going to be zoning in on how to make a good work plan. And that I think is a skill that if the employee is able to, is a really great skill for all employees to have.